Hello, hello. Welcome to Kill the Bottle Podcast. Eddie Zamora, a.k.a. the Yum Yum Foodie, and the lovely señorita Megan is here as well. Hello, Megan.
Hi.
Okay, I saw...
Hey,
okay, there we go.
No,
that's all we got. It's okay. I'm glad to see you smiling. It's a good thing. We'll dive into all that in our little recap show that will be...
I'm smiling because we have someone on that I'm really excited to have on.
I know. Me too. I'm really excited about our guest, but it is called Kill the Bottle Podcast. So before I intro our guest, I'm going to talk just briefly about what I'm drinking right now. I'm drinking a little bit of Lillet Rouge. It's kind of inspired by my trip. I just got back from Europe, and again, Megan and I will take a little bit deeper dive into that on our next show. But Lillet Rouge, it's a little aromatized wine, as I guess what they call it. It's about balanced fruit, spice. It's a little homage to a lunch I had in Saint-Emilion at a place called Logis de la Cadenne, I think is what it was called. It's a fucking nice-ass restaurant. I just have the worst memory in the world now. But I had this as my little aperitif with lunch, and as many cocktails as I've had with Lillet before, I've actually never had it by itself. So I drank a little bit of chilled Lillet Rouge, and it was so delicious that I got back and I picked a bottle up at Total Wine yesterday just for the show. So Megan did mention that we have a guest, and I want to tell you a little bit about our guest before I introduce him. First of all, he is...
I'm drinking scotch.
Oh.
You're welcome.
You're drinking scotch. I didn't know what you were throwing down because, I knew it was some kind of a brown liquid. Oh,
and a monster.
And a monster. in very Megan form. And
I had Wingstop for lunch, not as fancy.
By the way, I saw a Wingstop. Where the fuck did I see Wingstop? Oh, I saw Wingstop in London, and it looked so much nicer than any Wingstop here, and it still looked disgusting. But anyway, getting back to our guest, he is from Stockholm, Sweden. He is, well, first of all, he started off as a chef, which I love to see careers change and paths change. He's also a fan of jazz guitar, which we can definitely get into. I can't wait to talk about that. But currently, before currently, he won World's Best Sommelier in 2007. He's currently the wine director at a Michelin star. I'm going to try to pronounce this right. In Sweden, called PM. Is it Vettner or Venner?
Venner.
PM Venner. In Vacho. Fuck.
That's very complicated. Yeah.
Damn it. All right. Welcome to Kill the Bottle Podcast. Amazing sommelier, Andreas Larsson. Hey, Andreas, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
I tried. I butchered it. I went into ChatGPT, and then my screen went black where it had the proper phonetic pronunciation. So then I just fucked the whole thing up. I'm sorry. I tried.
And actually getting back to that, that's kind of old information because I spent a good, 10, 12 years there. I reclined from it. I still didn't leave. Yeah, but I reclined from the everyday work because, being able to be a consultant and traveling and everything and dealing with a restaurant is not a very easy thing to do. But that was my last serious restaurant project. Yeah, and I'm still going there, and sorry.
You need more wine.
I'm still
Yeah,
I do actually.
What are you sipping on?
I'm drinking. I was actually last week before taking off. I rarely use the Coravan at home. I use it because when I have to taste 10 wines and I just need a sip of it, like professionally. But normally when I drink, I open a bottle. I kill the bottle, voila, which is
pun intended. I like that. Yeah.
Voila. But no, I just wanted one good glass before taking off next morning, and this is a Chambol Musigny Premier Cru Les Charmes 2017 from François Berthaud. So this is now it's summer, it's sunny, it's warm. I don't want to drink the heaviest, beefiest red wines. This is all about the finesse, the elegance, and voila.
Isn't that the greatest thing in the world, consulting? Everybody that I know that is a consultant that can actually make a living from it they're just like the happiest people. They're just, it's you're not tied down to a particular spot. You can kind of, paint your palette throughout and leave art throughout the world versus being stuck in the same place. Was that your intention, or did that just happen organically?
It was kind of my intention because being independent is not a bad thing. And, I don't have a boss. I don't have colleagues. I don't have a salary. I don't have anything. I'm just, you know. So no, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. And I mean, some things I do more, other things I do less. But I don't have to be in an office at 8 o'clock every morning. Or I don't have to be, polishing glasses 1 a.m. every night.
It is very liberating. For some context, Megan and I met Andreas at this wonderful tasting here in LA for Gerard Bertrand. And we've been so blessed to spend some time with Gerard, and then Andreas.
When I broke my ankle.
That's right. When Megan fucked up her ankle, if you remember on the show,
I rode a scooter up in a dress, and I smashed my ankle on the scooter and walked in like bleeding.
Yeah,
I was hiding.
I'm like, your leg is bleeding, Megan. What the?
It's like, I know.
I can't
Don't
take you
worry
anywhere.
About it.
So yeah, just for a little bit of context, and that was a wonderful pairing with Gerard's wines. I try to think of how your passion for music aligns with your passion for wine. How do you look at wine in regards to the taste, the flow? Is there any correlation to the way you love music and your wine love?
It is, because I think that, when you start to grasp a subject and you know a little bit about it, you don't have to be a fully fledged expert, but you see structures and you see relations between things, how they develop, and how, going back listening to old music today, it sounds much better than it did 20 years ago because it developed. I think the same thing in terms of aging wine, coming back to it, understanding it, seeing it from another perspective. However, I'm sorry. However, when people are doing sometimes this is the perfect song for this wine, we can never say, because it's depending very much on your own taste. To me, I'd like to pair this with, Bill Evans doing this piece, or some people would say, oh, this is great with Nirvana. There's no sense in it. I think to a certain extent, I did a few events actually with musicians and orchestras where we paired music and wine. And when it comes to classical music, you can of course go back to the history and the culture, the origin. Doing a German Riesling with Bach, solo piece by Bach on the violin. It's purity, it's structure, it's really depth. You have the depth, and I recall this particular gig we did Debussy with Bordeaux because he was more a bombastic guy. It was string quartet and piano, and then we did Burgundy with Beethoven because it was, he was the first. He was a humanist, and he was. So it was more of the peasant, the artist, and you can always do those relations with it. And I mean, I enjoy music immensely. I enjoy wine immensely, and voila.
Now, you left the world of being a chef to go into wine. Was there a moment where you just realized you're cooking and you're like, I'm doing better pairings than the people that I'm working with? Or did you just get inspired and say, fuck this, I want to take a deep dive into wine, and you did everything you wanted to do culinarily in the kitchen?
Well, actually, I was very much into gastronomy, but the actual work was, my biggest interest in this was in the 90s, was actually music. I wanted to play music, so being a chef was more of a going to work, but I didn't do anything particularly ambitious as a chef. I would say today I make much better stuff because when I have the time to be at home and cook and open my bottles, and it's much better. So I just said, if I don't do it well, I'll quit and I do something else. So I entered sommelier school and realizing, making a living from playing modern jazz, it's not a
No.
I still continue to play and enjoy it a lot, and occasionally I do gigs, and I probably now, having 3 weeks off at home, will play more than I did for a long time. And sorry.
No, you're good.
Sometimes when friends call me, like a wine importer or having events, could you put together a trio and do a gig? I love it because it's really going back to your roots of music.
Well, you're looking at the son of a jazz musician, and I know, especially nowadays, how challenging it can be to make a living, especially with that, that being the kind of music you played. You mentioned Bill Evans. My father was very lucky to see Bill Evans play live. That's my favorite
really?
Piano player. Yes, that is by far my favorite jazz harmonized ever. So it was very, very happy to hear you mention Bill Evans.
What a coincidence, because I thought of this as elegance, as finesse. I wouldn't mention Coltrane here. I wouldn't mention anything too groovy. This is just cool.
That's
your father was a piano player, or
no? My dad's a percussionist. My dad played. My dad played drums. His favorite was Max Roach, and that was his. That was the person that he turned me on to, who of course played with Bill and Miles Davis and all the above. I have my father's record collection. Every time I go back to Miami, I bring back with me on the plane a few more of my father's albums from the '60s. And
cool.
It just reminds me of my childhood. So it's just really nice to hear you mention that. Do you remember the first wine that you had that truly blew you away, and maybe why it did?
Yes. I'm lucky to, when people ask your favorite wine, I'm lucky to be spoiled with all of the great ones. There's probably a few vintages of the greatest I did not have, but I was still, I went to sommelier school. Then I was picked up by one of my teachers who said, you should come and work with me. And this place is, we don't have the tradition in Sweden like having private clubs like they do in London, but this is a wine cellar for people living in the city, apartments. They don't have cellars, so you store your wines, but it's also like a private club. So every night I was, basically opening and decanting all of the great, the first growths from Bordeaux every day, and the super Tuscans and the great champagnes. And I thought that was kind of normal. I suppose a lot of young people today work in a restaurant, they don't see those wines. And one of the collectors, he opened Chateau Latour 82.
Oh.
And when I had a sip of it, it was like, oh my God, what is going on? Mm-hmm. It was the first time I was really moved because something was so extraordinary. And I will never forget that sensation. And that is still something that, when people ask about blind tasting, could you recognize a wine blind? If someone opens any simple wine, you might find variety, but it's not particularly, but on that pedigree, I'm sure Latour 82 is close to a wine you can just sniff and you know what it is, because it has all that personality, all that character. And so Latour 82 it was the first, and over the years I followed it. And last time I had the pleasure of doing comparing the Bordeaux 82s. Latour is by far the best one.
Still holding up. Yeah,
still holding up.
I wish I had something that brought me that much joy when I talked about it. I need to find this.
Fireball whiskey, Megan. I've heard you talk about Fireball whiskey.
Look at me go. Yeah. Let me go with that. I was a musician, a paid musician for 10 years. It wasn't jazz, I'll tell you that. But it clearly didn't pay the bills. So I'm also doing other things. But if you couldn't be a musician and you couldn't be a sommelier, what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, I normally say I only have 3 talents. Well, those would be cooking, gastronomy, wine, and music. Mm-hmm. But yet within those domains, I suppose you could do a lot of things. You could go into teaching in any of those, and I could probably be a teacher. And I speak all the languages and stuff. But now I'm happy to do my wine poetry, whatever you call it.
What languages do you speak? How many? What do you mean all of that?
Well, once you learn one Latin language, it's easy to learn the second and then the third. So, the French, the Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, not a problem. And Swedish is a Germanic language, so German, English, of course, is. And then traveling, I was pretty good in Japanese, and I actually learned Hungarian and weird stuff like this, the Scandinavian language, Norwegian, Danish, and I never learned Chinese. I never learned really Slavic languages, but the rest I'm pretty good.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're just trying to read wine bottles here. We're just trying to figure out what's...
I can barely read the Monster label at this point. You said you had a favorite wine, but let's talk music. Is there a song? I always have a song that pops into my head about my favorite song in the entire world. Do you have a song that you just like, this is it for me?
I don't think I have one song, actually. you have to go in, which is favorite saxophone, guitar, this era, the 60s, 70s, or the modern times, or I was a metal guy in the 80s, the Guitar Hero generation, and
Yes.
then I became more of a jazz snob, and then now I kind of go back to my old, listening to the metal from the Sabbath and from the 70s and all of that stuff I grew up with, coming back
R.I.P.
to it
Ozzy.
somehow.
R.I.P. Ozzy. Yeah, I was in England when his funeral happened, and it was I was not ready to find out that news. It was oh man, super
Yeah,
sad.
I live on Hollywood Boulevard, and that whole area where his star was just covered with people and flowers and everything. It was pretty crazy.
That's good. Yeah,
And I saw him in 1983, actually.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did he bite the head off of anything?
He did not at this particular concert, but
God, crazy.
yeah.
And now, at least this is from my novice experience in the world of wine. I love wine because it's not work for me. I love learning about wine. In Bordeaux, I just went to the famous, I think can't remember what it's called now. It's the famous wine museum with this it's shaped like a giant decanter, basically, right on the river in Bordeaux. And
Cité du Vin.
There we go. Cité du Vin. And it was, honestly, regardless of it being about wine, it was probably one of the best museums I've ever been to as far as interactiveness and how much you can learn from it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like work for me. Do you get to a point where wine feels like work and you have to take a step back and be like, this is fun. It's just grape juice gone bad, gone good. Do you ever go through that?
Yeah, I do, actually, because, we speak about Latour 82 and comparing the best 82s. I wish I could do that full time, but, a lot what you do is actually about, I'm doing selections. I'm consulting for retail, like Leclerc in France, who's the biggest retailer of wine. I mean, by definition, it's a supermarket. I help them with their selections. And I think that's very rewarding because, choosing, saying that Latour 82 is great and, making your poetry, speaking about the wine, that's fun. But, finding 75,000 bottles of the best Côte
Yeah.
for 6 euros for the French thirsty population, that's also work. Then it becomes work. Occasionally, when I do my blind tasting stuff, I taste 400 wines a week. I sit down by the computer, I taste, I do my notes, and then it becomes work. So actually, after a session like that, what do you drink? Well, then it's nice with gin tonic. After tasting 100 wines a day,
Yeah.
I don't want to drink another. So it's, but yeah, I mean, most of it, because again, when we spoke about, what would I do otherwise? I think wine is certainly the school of life because it gave, I don't really have any kind of higher education. I went to the restaurant school when I was young, but in terms of culture, you read your labels, you hear the stories about Burgundy, you speak about the Cistercian monks or the Benedictine monks, and then you speak about Napoleon and the French Revolution, and you learn so much from it because it's not, in the end, we're not selling matches. We are working with wine, which is kind of alive, and it's surrounded by the culture and the gastronomy and the history of civilization, actually.
You mentioned 75,000 bottles of Côte du Rhône, let's say, for the French market. And I put myself in your shoes. And, in my mind, I'm like, okay, how do you navigate that for your client versus the consumer? And what I'm referring to is, like, I would probably want to open a Côte Rôtie or something spectacular from Rhône and try to find the most reasonably priced bottle that is the closest to that world. Not that you're going to find it. Is that your approach where you're trying to get the best value for the consumer? Or how does that work for you when you're dealing with that volume?
Well, on that level, it's really about the pleasure. I mean, the wines should come from a domain. It's not, brands or so it's all estate wines coming from producers. Then today it's very difficult to find Burgundy because Burgundy has become expensive and it's in terms of quantity. We might find, 6,000-7,000 bottles of a Pouilly-Fuissy or on that level. But it's about the pleasure. And some of these wines, you can still find them in the Rhône, in Bordeaux, in southern France, where you make decent quantity and good quality. And I mean, those prices, I still think that, to buy wines on that level in France, there's still a lot of amazing wines for less than 10 euro retail. Of course, you wouldn't find it in the US because it has to be imported, and the taxes and, well, tariffs. Now, probably we shouldn't get into that.
Oh, you're welcome to. Fucking, I can't. When I start seeing these prices go up, I'm gonna. Thank God I have a shit ton of wine at home, but it's not good. Anyway, yeah, I was hearing about that for a couple of weeks while I was in Europe. So,
if you Eddie, you always give me the shitty wine. Why?
I always give you the shitty wine. Yeah, okay.
You give me all the stuff you don't want.
No, I don't give you all the stuff I don't want. I give you all the stuff I have multiples of.
Multiples of.
Yes.
You do. I have a funny question. This is random, but like if you had to replace wine in like a city with all the public water fountains, what city would you replace all the public water fountains with wine in? You've been around the world.
Probably Rome, if I think about fountains. Yeah.
Imagine Trevi Fountain shooting wine all over the place with a bunch of influencers red. Trying to take pictures with it falling in. It's great.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Has there been any, because, right now there's all these kind of, I don't want to say rediscovery in the world of wine, but it's the kind of thing where everybody knows about, Burgundy, they know about Bordeaux, they'll know about Napa, XYZ, and then you're starting to see this resurgence of Georgian wine. You're seeing, like you mentioned, you learned to speak a little bit of Hungarian. You're seeing Eastern Europe. At the museum in Bordeaux, there was a wine from China that was about 270 euro a bottle. And I was like, for fuck's sake, I had no idea that China, is it hype, or are they making wines that are now at that level of, quality? Is there a grape variety or anything that you find that's really underappreciated and is in need of discovery?
Well, I think that's constant work in progress, because trends will always come and go. A lot of wines you said 20 years ago, you could never make quality from this. You can never make quality from that. And I think, Aojun, which is the expensive Chinese wine, that's LVMH behind. So they had the muscles, They had the money, and they had the marketing. But I have to say, like China, when people ask me, everything I tasted from there is more or less good. It's correct. Then you think, why drink another Chardonnay from here, or why drink another Cabernet Sauvignon from, there are thousands of wines like that. But today, at least in the world, I think you can make good wine everywhere. Then you can make very good wine, and then great wine might perhaps be confined to fewer places. But I think, I just had tried some wines. When I traveled, first time I went to Ribera del Duero, it's all about Tempranillo, but they also had this white grape, Albillo, and they say, we just use it for rosé and to light and red wines because it's no potential to make great wines with it. Today, you look at some producers making Albillo, and these are like $50, $80, $100 wines.
Wow.
And people saying this is the great stuff. You look at Portugal, another country I went to more than 20 years ago. You said that the white wines, they're oaky, they're oxidized, they're heavy, or they were the lean, kind of bubbly Vinho Verde stuff. And now with the indigenous variety, with a relatively cool climate, the Atlantic coast, where they don't have the Gulf Stream, so it's actually a real cool climate. People speak about it all the time, but there aren't that many really cool climates. So it's emerging. I mean, it's moving all the time, and we're coming back to. I'm just what you said. I think Eastern Europe, Central Europe, you have very long traditions. But then, of course, like Hungary, which I think is making a lot of intriguing wines. During communism, they didn't make anything great, and then it really took time for them to come back into the game. I recently did quite a lot of tastings in Turkey. And if I say Turkey, people would say, Turkey, they have really, speaking about the old vineyards. And according to the Old Testament, wine really came from southeastern Turkey, Syria, Iraq, regions we absolutely don't associate with wine today. But having these old varieties, and I would always say, if I could drink a technically clean, I mean, perfect wine from, whatever, Chardonnay, Cabernet, or if I could drink a wine with a slight fault, but coming from, family, old vineyards, but having character, I would always choose the latter.
Got it. I mean, so from my recent trip, and Megan, you'll appreciate this. It was my first time. It was my first time in Priorat, and Megan, when the soil there is slate. It's like a fucking chalkboard that somebody hit with a sledgehammer and is broken up into all of these big chunks of slate. And the grapes are growing in the steepest of hills. I can't imagine trying to harvest in that area, try to make some wine. But I was so blown away by the flavor. And it goes to show, it's like you said, like wine, you can kind of grow it anywhere. And I can't imagine people in that region looking at that dirt saying, oh, yeah, we're going to make amazing wine coming from here or from Israel or from Turkey or in Lebanon. Has there been a region that you went to recently or even that just kind of really changed or you had a misconception of what was coming, and then once you tried it, it really created a 180 for you?
I suppose that happens all the time because, as I said, Turkey, which is one of the countries where I tasted quite a lot recently, you might have this conception that, they don't make good wines. And even, in the more established wine countries, like I said, certain regions in Portugal, certain regions in Spain, they were just, you mentioned Priorat. Priorat, there was one cooperative until 1989, which was the first harvest, when you had the 5 producers sharing one cellar to make wine.
That's crazy.
And all of a sudden people said, because, you had the monks and they had the wisdom to plant in the best places. No one would think today, commercially, it's painstaking work, the steep slopes and everything. And in the 90s, the wines were big, they were oaky, it was a lot of Cabernet and French varieties in there. Today in Priorat, everyone is basically just about the traditional variety. It's Carignana and Garnacha, and occasionally you have some Syrah, but the other French varieties kind of left the building, so to speak. So it's in constant progress. And I think again the area surrounding Priorat, like Monsant, it's not as famous. The prices are much lower, but everything is just so incredibly gorgeous. I mean, I never had a bad wine from there.
Yeah,
really.
I was at a winery called Ferré Bobet, and the view from the top of that winery was Monsant. And at dinner the night before, I happened to have a bottle. Megan, this wine is incredible. It's so fucking good. And again, just very reasonably priced, like you mentioned, compared to Priorat, because they don't yield a lot of wine from Priorat. It's just expensive. They don't make a lot of it. So it's hard to find a bottle for under $25, at least in the States. Most of them are going to be way more than that. And like you mentioned, like Monsant is like, oh, cool. I didn't even know this existed. A. B, now I come back, I go to Total Wine, and they have like 2 bottles of it, and I'm a little apprehensive to see what they've brought in, but I'm gonna give them a go. Anyway, I get so excited talking with wine about talking about wine with wine people, because I just love. It's one of the things that I get. Megan gets excited about. Monster and I'm just kidding. Megan loves wine.
I'll tell you what I get excited about.
Megan loves wine. I do
love wine. I'm not as obviously well versed as you guys are, but what I did like when I saw you at the wine tasting was your charisma and your ability to speak in front of people. Have you always been able to do that, or was that something was a fear you had to overcome?
No, not at all. I would say when I was younger, I was much more introverted. And, I was a dreamer, I was playing music, but I really didn't do that. But when I started to do my sommelier competitions, because, of course, before the World Championship, I did the European, I did the Swedish, I did national and stuff. You have to perform because, every time you see yourself on you look at this video or you say, oh, my God, do I look like that? Oh, my God, do I sound like that? So I was really exposed to doing a lot of training, see yourself on camera, doing your 3 minutes, can you describe this wine? Well, so you kind of develop that. And I think that, the hardware for, wine knowledge, it's about knowing the grapes, it's, the theory and all of that. I think the software is more complex. How do you actually perform in front of people? Every time often when I go to restaurants, I'm kind of frustrated because of the communication of people. They are telling you a lot of things that are not interested. A normal consumer would never care about, this is 16 months in a combination of French and American oak. What does it mean even? So I think you have to kind of read your client, you have to listen to it and adapt your language. And when I was exposed to this and I was criticized doing this, doing that, you look ugly, you look this, you look whatever, I kind of learned to deal with it. And in the end, I enjoyed it immensely. Now I like being on stage, actually. If someone asks me to go on stage, can you speak about this? Can you do that? I actually enjoy it. So it's something I actually worked on.
Were you a good kid growing up or a bad kid growing up?
Good.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun.
Yeah. Is there a language? Is there a language you get more nervous about when you do have to present?
Well, yeah, some of them I'm not perfectly fluent. I don't use them every day, but I it's a question of preparation.
Preparation. Was there something in your career as a sommelier or a task that was just like overwhelmingly challenging, like, or you weren't successful at, or you feel like, oh my God, that was really hard? Is there something you remember from your career?
No, I mean not. I was always happy to the establishments I worked in. I always had good customers, first of all, because people always said, to me, oh, the Chinese, they put ice in red wine, or people are doing this. Restaurant wise, I always worked. I had a chance to travel around the world, but in terms of restaurants, I was always in Stockholm, or actually now in Växjö, the last project in southeastern Sweden. And people coming there, they're not, sometimes I suppose someone going to Europe for the first time, they go to London, they go to Paris, nouveau riche, they want to spend money, they want to bling, they want to double Magnus and Crystal and ice. I never really had that. So I always had customers that were open-minded. They accepted, coming to the restaurant, having the tasting menu with the wine pairings and stuff like that. So I never really had this, complicated, and I suppose it happens, but, the noble art of convincing someone that they're wrong, it's actually perfectly doable.
I
want a book of that. I want a book that is like, that tells me how to tell someone they're wrong without being an asshole.
Well, I love asking sommelier friends, what is the worst wine that somebody brought in for corkage? Because I remember I was at a Spanish restaurant here in Pasadena, and not because I think it's a bad wine, but somebody brought in and paid corkage on a Costco Rioja at this paella restaurant by my house. And that's an $8 or $9 bottle of wine, which there's nothing wrong with that because I buy that for my house. It's like I think it's a great bottle of wine in the United States for that price point. But can you remember something that you were just like, why did this person bring this in to open at the restaurant?
It's easy. I think most places in Europe, you don't do corkage.
Okay.
You don't do bring your own. So
well, that eliminates that.
yeah. Voila.
Because also everything is so reasonably priced for the most part in Europe. I mean, is there any advice you have for the consumer? So I know when I go into a restaurant, because I've been doing this for a while, that I tell a sommelier a price point, and then that I want to stay in, and a good kind of general term, and then I'll tell them, hey, I'm thinking of ordering this. This is what we're going to order for the table, more or less. Can you recommend one or two bottles in this price point that are going to perhaps align with this? Do you have any advice to for the consumer who's coming in to order at a restaurant to make, I know you still have to do your job, but to make your job a little bit more easy or relatable as a som?
Well, I think already telling, I'm within this range within this budget range is a good thing, because you don't have to be embarrassed to say, I want to spend $150 or I want to spend $200. That's a good thing. And most people, they kind of know what they like, but also, sometimes, I mean, I still do this myself. If I look at my own collection, they're about quite classic wines, the regions we just spoke about it. But I still like to go to, a natural wine bar where they serve some kind of funky stuff. Not always my preference in many ways, but just to see what's going on. And I actually ask, the staff, like, serve me something I don't know. Because sometimes you want to be surprised. And sometimes you want to go to, classic place and just order your Côte Rôtie or your Pomerol or whatever you like. So be honest about, what you want.
What does a typical day look like for you in your job? I mean, none of your days are typical, I'm sure. You're traveling, you're doing all this stuff, but like, what's like you get up and what do you do? Do you work out? Do you try wine right when you wake up?
Well, a perfect day is actually waking up, drinking green tea, working out, drinking my save the day kind of ginger beetroot juice smoothie.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the day, you can succumb to decadence.
What's your favorite food to cook? I've stalked you on Instagram, so I've seen a lot of your videos.
She kind of stalked you in person when we were at Gerard's event, but that's neither here nor there.
Like, look at this man. He's amazing. What is your favorite thing to cook?
Well, it's, my heart in terms of gastronomy, it's French, because when I was young, imagine I grew up in a time where we had 2 TV channels in Sweden. And then somewhere in like
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
No.
I don't know what that's like.
No. And then like in 87, 88, we got, cable TV, so we could actually see other, we got French TV5, and they were cooking on TV. Today you have Top Chef, you have everything. But back in those days, we did not. It wasn't really fashionable to be a chef. And when we saw these emissions from France, Paul Bocuse cooking, and me and my brother, who's a chef today, who's a professional chef today, we were so impressed about it. So to me, the foundation is very much about French gastronomy. Then, of course, the classic Swedish and very much Asian, because I like food with flavor. I like food with color, with spice, with. I always say, I don't cook Italian, because Italian is all about products. It's about making pasta. I'm afraid to touch everything that deals with flour. I don't make pasta. I don't make bread.
Will you educate me in Swedish food? Because I'm unfamiliar with Swedish food.
You have an IKEA in Burbank, okay? I'm just kidding.
Doesn't help.
It's probably the equivalent of your $9 Costco Rioja. So it's it's not bad. It's not artisanal in any way, but no, it's very much based on, most cuisines, they are based on, when people were poor. It was based on preserving food. So the tradition of like gravlax, marinating, smoking fish. Sweden has a lot of lakes and rivers, so it was a lot about salmon and trout and char, eel, river and fish like perch and pike perch stuff. But we also have 4,000 kilometers of coast. So, of course, along the coast, fish was more important. When I grew up, cod was like a staple. We had cod 2-3 times a week.
Wow.
Beef was expensive, so pork was more like everyday food. But then in the north, they have all the game, they have all the mushrooms. In the south, it's more about, poultry. And so it's very regional as well. But I think the art of herring was really the staple for poor people. And it was pickled. So, vinegar, sugar, spices, and it's delicious. I suppose it's more like going into to a delicatessen in kind of like the Jewish with the smoked fish and pickled fish and stuff. Even though we don't have that tradition in Sweden, it's probably more similar to it.
See, I love all that stuff. You can put any fish in a can, season, like toast some bread, and I am the happiest person in the world.
Yeah, kind of. And I have to say at the same time, people speak about the Mediterranean diet, olive oil and grilled fish, vegetables. If I look at traditional, northern Sweden, 9 months a year, there's no fresh vegetables. You have your carrots and beetroots and potatoes. They say, dairy is not good. These people, they grew up on cream, butter, roots, pork, fat fish, but average age is very long. So, the Mediterranean diet stuff, I don't buy it actually. It's a very complex thing.
I mean, yeah.
So, the traditional food it's rustic, it's greasy, it's heavy, but most people are not obese.
Well, there's a lot of walking. Also, I think the cold weather over there preserves you a little bit.
It does actually.
Really. You've traveled all over the world. Is there a bucket list restaurant that you have not been to yet that you are just dying to get the opportunity to go to?
Yeah, I was just watching on Netflix a documentary about Thomas Keller.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to per se New York a few times, but I never had the opportunity to go to the French Laundry.
Look at Megan.
And yeah,
I'm dying to go. Megan's been.
I went and Thomas Keller came out and he ended up I was by myself. I planned this entire trip for it and he ended up paying for my entire meal after he met me. I'm just super charming. No.
Really?
It was the most the waitress brought by the bill and I was like, just take my card. I don't want to see it. Take my card. I've been planning this trip for a long time. And she's like, you want to see it? And I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, you do. And I opened it up and it said, your meal's compliments of the chef. And I was like, I cried, but it's an amazing experience. You have to go.
There's a restaurant. No, sorry. Go ahead, Andreas.
No. I was actually last year in Napa. Earlier this year, I was in Sonoma and Napa as well. So I was in the neighborhood, but I still just didn't find the occasion and time to go there. So that's really one of the famous ones I haven't been to.
There's a restaurant in Norway that just popped up on my Instagram, and of course I'm losing my mind, and I want to plan a whole trip just around going to it. It looks like the Bean in Millennium Park in Chicago. It's like a big silver ball that's in the middle of a lake in Norway. And
yes.
Have you seen this? Yes. I can't think of the freaking name of the place, but you start off on the shore and you have like amuse-bouche and champagne, and then you get on a boat and they take you out to the middle of this lake and it looks like a spaceship floating in the water. That's a few different levels. Megan, I got to send this to you on Instagram. It's ridiculous, but that's my buck. Oh, man, I want to go to French Laundry now. We should all go. That's it. Let's do this. French Laundry. I'll call TK.
Deal.
TK's a homie. I'll call that guy. Don't worry. I want to ask you this because I'm from the trip I just came back from. I was torn a little bit, even though I still went with the wine pairing at every single one of the dinners that I went to. When do you know that the wine pairing is worth doing it versus the wine pairing is kind of a scam and they're overcharging for it? Or is there a telltale sign? Because he
wouldn't work with those people, Eddie. Well, he wouldn't know that.
No, but it's like I went to a restaurant called Enigma. Albert Adria, who was a guest on the show, I finally got to go to his restaurant in Barcelona, and it was 17 courses paired with wine and bubbles, and it was the most incredible pairing I've had to date. But then there's been times where I've gotten the wine pairing, and I'm like, I probably should have just gone and done a bottle.
Yeah, well, I think in Spain, speaking about the Spanish, of course, you speak about gastronomy. You always said French gastronomy is great. Italian gastronomy is great. But I think some of those countries, they are resting a bit on their laurels. They don't renew. They think they have it all. So they have to The Spanish, I love them because they don't take themselves too seriously. And everything you get, it's always great value, and people are friendly. They honestly seem to like what they do. They are not too stuffy, actually. And I mean, you kind of have to know the reputation of a restaurant. There are certain restaurants I would go to. I would do the wine pairing out of curiosity and out, to see what they do. I always think that the good thing is always to start to order a good bottle of Riesling. It's kind of like your mineral water, so you always have something more to drink. Because occasionally they give you small sips, and I'm a wine drinker more than a taster. But sometimes I would actually just like, let's do one bottle of white, one bottle of red. I don't want to deal with this, because sometimes what disturbs me, I'm such a diehard wine romantic. You go for the beverage pairing, and if I start with a nice glass of champagne and they then do a pairing, then they give you a beer, then they give you a sake. And okay, a few times I said, I want wine. I don't want anything else. And then, this is a beer. This is it's fine. I can drink that, if I go for a schnitzel somewhere, or if I go for, but if someone serves a, fantastic scallop, whatever, I don't want that. If I'm in Japan, I'll drink sake. But if I had the choice between a Meursault or a sake, I would take the Meursault, because I'm just this diehard wine romantic. I like wine. Wine's my gig.
Is there a wine that or a region that you're still fighting with as far as trying to find more that you like from there? Because I've had that happen with me with Greece. I'm fighting it because I keep trying Greek wine, but I haven't had anything that really connects with me. And the same thing being like Malbec from Mendoza. I can taste that there's a quality wine, but it's not something that aligns with my palate. Do you have a particular wine region or a varietal that you're in a constant battle with?
Yeah, certainly. There are a few wine styles. You can never generalize, but I would say I'm not buying New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay. Too floral?
Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, because I would say 95% it's aromatic, it's fresh. You have your slight residual sugar, you have all the green stuff in there. Most of the wines are correct or good. You will always have a few producers making something nice, but it's not a style that appeals to me. I kind of agree with you. I was actually in April. I was in Chile and Argentina. I did a 3-week trip, and for a long time I always said Argentinian Malbec. It sells. It's popular. It's beefy. It's aromatic. It's all. But I always preferred blends or Cabernet Franc or Syrah or other varieties but Malbec. And it's probably sacrilegious to say that, I'm not a fan of it. But then again, coming back to it, you look at the high altitude stuff, you look at, newer vinifications. But I suppose, you can't like everything. And I think your struggle with Greece, it's probably, I think you have to spend time in Greece. You have to eat the local food, drink the wines to fully understand them. It took me a long time too, but I think the advantage is that, they're not confined to having to produce Sauvignon Blanc or Merlot or Cabernet, because they have all of the varieties. And actually my lunch wine today, I made homemade falafel, because I had nice chickpeas, and I said I have to opt for kind of Mediterranean style of wine. And one of my staples I'm actually drinking now, it's from Chieriani. It's Assyrtiko. It's not from Santorini. And Assyrtiko is a nicely, I would say, fruitless. It's more about the citrus zest, salt, neutral, but not in a negative way. Very digest. And this is like a $10 retail in Sweden. And I love that wine. Speaking about, despite the Latour 82s, some of those wines can give me immense pleasure. And with these Mediterranean flavors, you have tzatziki, you have falafel and stuff. So I think Greek wines are best enjoyed with food. Because some of those red wines, they have high acids, high tannins, just like a lot of Italian wines. They're not particularly charming on their own if you look for traditional Sangiovese style. high tannin, high acid. But any pasta dish, any pizza will just like, okay, it's good.
What are your feelings on because I'd only seen it one time out of Croatia, and then I'd mentioned to you before we started recording that I was in Arcachon, which is about an hour outside of Bordeaux on the train, and it's right on the coast, just kind of northeast from Saint Sebastian in Spain, so really close to like the French border. And they had wines that were aged in the ocean. I've seen it, like I said, out of Croatia, and I saw these bottles that were for sale that were, you could tell that they weren't just painted with like saltwater residue. These were pulled up from the ocean. What's your opinion on those wines? I've never tried one.
I tried a few of them, and I mean, I can't say they're better. I think it's more the storytelling, for sure. But then again, lower temperatures, the pressure, the wines will just technically age slower.
Okay, yeah, no
but
sunlight.
I mean, scientifically, to say that they are much better comparing to classically aged wine, I don't think we can do that actually. And I was lucky too, because I think one of the first really famous stories was actually about the time I started in wine business. They found a schooner outside of southeastern Sweden, going to St. Petersburg with champagne, and this was the famous Heidsieck Monopole Goutte Américain 1907. And they brought it up in 99 or so. And then these bottles been sold in auctions and stuff. And I had the opportunity of tasting that a few times.
Wow.
And I would say 1 out of 3 bottles were great. 1 out of 3 were okay. 1 out of 3, they were not good. But still having the story, they've been resting at the bottom of the Baltic Sea for 100 years. Well, 80 years or so. So it's more of the emotion and the history and the storytelling than the quality in itself.
Question for Megan: Are you single?
Me? No.
I was trying to make Megan red, and you red.
He's trying to embarrass me. This is what he does. He does it so well.
What?
Apologies, my friend.
I can't help it. She likes the tall, Viking type. What do you want?
That's it. Not single.
He's like, not single.
He's like, absolutely not. He's seen my stuff.
It was worth a shot.
I'm looking now for a role actually, because when I was in Asia last time, everyone said, "Oh, you look like Thor," because these Viking shows are so popular, and now I have the hair and the beard, so I'm.
You gotta come out to
second
LA.
career. Yeah, second career.
Well,
second career actor.
And you're a tall guy. I don't know how many millimeters or meters you are, but definitely in feet, you're a tall dude.
I'm 194 centimeters, and I think that's 6'5".
I am 5'2". I know you saw me, so that is like a good foot above me, way above me.
Yeah,
but that's usually how I live my life, looking up at people. So
it's a gift. It's a gift and a curse.
Speaking about when we met together with Gerard, I always tell Gerard, I don't like you because I have to look up to you. we're close to the same size, but he's like, I'm not used to it,
And yeah,
he's tall, he's handsome, he has everything.
I do love watching every time that guy walks in a room, because the women always go nuts. It's the funniest thing in the world to me, because I've had the pleasure of seeing Gerard walk into a room of a lot of people for a tasting, and he's like a rock star. Like, I look around the room and girls are like getting excited that Gerard's about to walk in the room. We need that in our lives, Megan.
Probably not only girls, He's kind of attracting people.
Do you remember when he met me? I didn't think he was talking to me because I was like, he's not talking to me, is he? And you're like, Megan, he's saying hi.
Yeah, I'm like, Megan, Gerard is saying hello to you.
I was like, my self-esteem is that low that I definitely thought he was going to ask me to move, not introduce himself to me.
Andreas, so I want to find out your perfect day. You're back home for 3 weeks, you mentioned. What does that look like for you, as far as if you could make one day your perfect day at home? What is that? Is it food,
drinks.
wine, drinks? What are you doing?
You mentioned the green tea thing earlier, but like this is ideal, like your last day on Earth.
Well, I still like to in order to fully enjoy eating and drinking, I think sports are important. Exercise in the morning, then doing your green tea, beetroot, ginger shit. Then, I always prefer to drink daytime. Because in the evening, you're kind of tired and you don't enjoy it as much. But having your aperitif at 11:30, then slowly cooking, another glass of something nice. Some chicken is in the oven or something's on the stove. That's ideal. Then a long lunch with friends, opening great bottles, and then the greatest thing in life. I really. Probably for the, since working in restaurants all the years, in order to work evening service, I always enjoyed a siesta because it really, yeah.
Yeah, Spain is the best.
It is. And look again, we spoke about, Mediterranean diet and health. And so longest life expectancy in Europe is in Spain. And the Spaniards, they drink, they smoke, but they enjoy life. They do siesta.
Yeah. And the only part that drives me nuts is that like dinner sometimes is like at 10:30 at night, and I'm individually turning into like an old retired couple. I want to eat at like 5:00, and I just want to drink and then pass out. But I hate going to sleep full. And the Spaniards they pulled it off. Like I had a 5-hour dinner at Enigma. 5 hours. It was like a work day. Was the dinner that I had at Enigma, and I walked out of there and I was like, "Fuck!" It flew by. Like I wanted to do it again, and I've never had a dinner. I've had a dinner that's been an hour and a half, and I'm like, "Fuck, this is too long. I can't wait to get the fuck out of here." And Enigma was like, "It's over. We're done." With like dessert number 17 came out. Like, what is this? Spaniards have it right, guys. You need to follow Andreas. He is Le Grand Sommelier on Instagram. You need to follow him there. But where can people find you, and what is next for you, Andreas?
Well, next for me is my 3 weeks of well-deserved holiday. And then I'm off to Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. Because once you win the World Championship, you can't compete again. It's only one competition every third year. And since then, I've been in a jury for all the international competitions. You have one for the Americas, one for Europe, Africa, Middle East these days, and then Asia Pacific. And in September in Kuala Lumpur, we'll have the best sommelier of Asia Pacific.
Oh, wow.
So I will do 1 week there in the jury, and then I will do some other tastings and events in Thailand and in Taiwan. And then, today most of my consulting is actually in France. So I'm going back and forth to France all the time.
You said jury.
And
it's like jury duty sounds fun when you're talking about wine.
I just got jury duty.
Oh, really?
I did.
Do they have jury duty in Sweden?
Like,
no, we don't have that.
Oh, fuck.
I'm moving to Sweden. Yeah. This is like my 5th one. I just tell them that I think the guy's guilty and they let me go. I'm like, there's 8 charges. He had to have done something wrong. And they're like, you can be dismissed.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Wait, that's like the best thing ever is trying to figure out how to get out of jury duty.
That's what we do here.
Yeah. Without purging yourself, without lying, because, thankfully I have family members that are in law enforcement, so I can always use that as my get out of jury duty card is saying that I always have family in law enforcement. Andreas, we try to end the show the same way whenever we have a guest. It's the only thing we don't get back in life is time. And Megan and I want to thank you for spending some of your precious holiday time here with us on Kill the Bottle podcast, since you personally enjoy killing bottles. Please, again, follow him on social at Le Grand Sommelier. Please like, rate, review, subscribe to our channel. Megan and I really, really love your feedback. Again, Andreas, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And guys, we will see you next week.